Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and of course YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Monday, March 20th, 2023, and we are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, students and youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, political advocacy, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Well, let's welcome anchor Orlando Gonzales. He is the executive director for SAVE, recognized as South Florida's longest-serving organization dedicated to protecting people who are LGBTQ plus against discrimination. He also served on the board of trustees of the Point Foundation. Good evening, Orlando.
Good evening. It's great to be here with you tonight, and I want to invite everybody to our gala this year, the SAVE Champions of Equality gala, happening at the New World Symphony Center on Sunday, May 14th. It's Mother's Day. We'll celebrate our mothers as well, so it's going to be a fun night. Hope everybody can make it. Let's welcome anchor Dale Stine. With a background in music and the arts, he's a well-known photographer, famous for his photographs of internationally acclaimed DJs, drag personas, and other entertainers, including our very own Faye Watt. He is presently the Director of Music Ministry at Unity on the Bay, as well as moderator of South Florida's largest LGBTQ plus Facebook group, Miami Gay List, which can be found on Instagram as @GayListOfficial. Good evening, Dale.
Thank you, Orlando, and it's great to see everyone. And I just want to do a little plug for Miami Beach Pride, which is coming up very soon. And I've actually been invited, and I'm very honored and humbled to be singing at the Pride Lights the Night event.
Oh,
so
nice.
I will be singing. I'll be there singing. Not
yeah, and a lot of people, I have to get the plug back in. A lot of people did not realize that the opening of the Faye Watt show is your voice. You're doing the opening one.
Yeah, and I actually like to hear that.
Yeah.
Not that you say it, but I was watching the show today, and I think I could really fast forward through that. I said, no, that sounds really
No, it really sounds good. Right, exactly.
Will that be the song you'll be singing at Miami Beach Pride?
That will not be the song.
Wow.
I'd like to, I'm sure Faye Watt would love that.
That girl? No, it won't be the song.
No,
he
I'm
sings.
doing Imagine and something else.
Good.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Anyway, let's welcome John Hayden. A journalist for 28 years, he now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News, as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ plus community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners. He's still exhausted from the weekend AIDS walk. Not from the walk itself, mind you, but everything that came afterward. Welcome, John.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
I'm just going to say I was hanging out with some other of our media partners.
Yes, really.
And that said, we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, March 20th, 2023.
Well, first, let's queer up politics. Donald Trump is going to be arrested this week and ask for another January 6th attack on America.
Well, y'all, Trump has channeled that one trashy cousin we all got and made an all-cap social media post talking about, they're going to take me to jail and it's a bunch of bull crap. I was a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. I never thought I'd see the day. I didn't. I mean, a rich, powerful white guy facing consequences for his actions, that ain't a thing here. This is America. But Trump treats crimes like Pokemons, and I guess at a certain point, even a system designed to protect people like him felt like it had to do something. Sort of like if you're a defensive end, a veteran defensive end in the NFL going against a flashy young quarterback, the refs will probably let you get some shots in on him, all right? They'll let you get away with some stuff. It's sort of an unspoken agreement. But if you spear him in the face, twist his ankle, and then start teabagging his unconscious body, you're probably going to get flagged for that. Right, which I feel like the equivalent of what happened to Trump here. But look, I'm still a little skeptical. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see him in jail or anything, although that would be hilarious. He's in there bragging about all the prison deals he's made, just talking about trading 2 ramen for 4 cigarettes like it's the Louisiana Purchase. It would be great, but I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. As opposed to Trump, who seems to prefer the piss and moan approach. In his social media post, he implored his mayonnaise legions to flood the streets in protest and, quote, take back our nation. Well, you'll excuse me for not quaking in my boots. I'm sorry, but in my opinion, the only thing these people are going to be taking back anytime soon is any fitness-related Christmas presents they got this year. Not that worried. I think that Trump both vastly overestimates the number of people who would start a war for him and vastly underestimates the percentage of those people who are permanently attached to oxygen tanks. All right? I'm not really all that scared. It does tell you everything you need to know about Trump, though, right? Ever the petulant toddler throwing a rage-fueled tantrum over the horrific injustice of having to abide by the same rule book that the rest of us adults live by every single day. As far as I'm concerned, it couldn't be happening to a better guy. But not everybody agrees. Marjorie Taylor Greene and the rest of the dumbass delegation are up in arms. She said, I hope you know, if you arrest him, he's going to be more popular than ever, which I feel like is not the flex she thinks it is. She's basically saying, oh, yeah, well, the only thing the Republican Party's base loves more than a narcissistic sexual assaulter is one with a criminal record. So what now? There's a great irony in these people talking about taking the country back, considering that's exactly what we did in 2020, right? The difference being we did so with democracy and the will of the actual people, and they're trying to do it with zip ties and a million mediocre mouth breathers. It's not the same thing, right? Because this isn't their country anymore. Right? They haven't won a popular vote in 2 decades, okay? They wouldn't be taking anything back. They'd just be stealing it, which I guess isn't surprising coming from the cult of the most prolific criminal the White House has ever seen. Party of law and order, my ass. Love y'all.
Well, that is comedian Trey Crowder, and he's kind of an unofficial reporter here at Queer News Tonight. He just was here at Sunshine Cathedral, and we thought instead of being MSNBC and giving you a report, we thought we would hear from a comedian about Donald Trump. Because former President Trump said in Truth Social post on Saturday morning he believes he will be arrested on Tuesday amid a Manhattan district attorney's investigation into hush money and payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. If this happens, Trump would be the first sitting or former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. In a separate post on Saturday morning, Trump said, America is now the third world and dying, and American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while also being critical of crime, inflation, prisons, and mental institutions. The district attorney's office has invited Trump to testify before the grand jury as part of the investigation. Trump's lawyer, Joseph Tacopina, told CNBC that the former president will surrender to face criminal charges should he be indicted. Trump, who has 24-hour protection from the Secret Service, is currently living at his Mar-a-Lago estate here in Palm Beach. A grand jury in Manhattan could indict Trump for his alleged role in the hush money paid to Stormy Daniels before the 2016 presidential election. Daniels claims she had an affair with the former president, which Trump has denied. The grand jury in Manhattan has the power to turn the 2024 campaign on its head by indicting Trump. But there's no precedent for what is about to happen, leaving the United States political system in uncharted waters. If this wasn't a joke, it would be a joke, but it's not a joke. He gets out ahead of the district attorney and the probably, I guess he knows, eventual indictment that is coming. In kind of breaking news, as we do this report this afternoon, Florida Governor DeSantis weighs in and says, and admonishes that Florida will do nothing to help this unwarranted attack, as he calls it, of the former president of the United States. So DeSantis certainly still setting himself in terms of the political straits that he is preparing for national audiences and the base in Iowa, in Arizona, in Nebraska, and other places. So it's an involving tale. Stay tuned.
And then DeSantis and like Pence, and so many of them are trying to walk that fine line between being very supportive of the former president and yet trying to not take a side in a way. It's a very odd thing that's going on there with the other people, the Pence and DeSantis.
So I think, if it happens tomorrow, March 21st will become a national holiday, right? To finally see Donald arrested.
It's the spring
right?
equinox.
Finally, yeah. So it's like a big day to celebrate. I'm sort of, aghast by the fact that it's the hush money that he's being arrested for, not the criminal lines of sedition, right?
Yeah, but look at Al Capone and a similar situation.
Right. So it's not the sedition. It's not in fact, he's trying to incite violence again, that if he's arrested tomorrow, he's calling for people to protest in the same manner. And so this is a man whose MO is instability, right? To destabilize everything all the time. And so I'll be smiling. I see him locked up in handcuffs and on his way to,
there's
due process.
There's a lot going on. He could still face those sedition and treason charges. There's still cases at the Department of Justice federally. There is still cases being looked at in Atlanta area in the state of Georgia. So this might not be the only one. Nobody has come out, aside from Donald Trump, and said this is going to happen Tuesday. There hasn't been anything broadcast about it. I'm guessing that his lawyers have told him that the indictment is going to come down at some point this week, but nothing is really out there officially yet. There won't be a perp walk because, and I'm glad that there won't be a perp walk. Quite honestly, our former presidents deserve to be protected, and I've been in some of those scrums for cases much smaller than this, and they are a zoo, and there's the potential of snipers. There's just so much opportunity for violence that it really is best if he comes in through a back door or something like that. But boy, if this happens, and DeSantis decides he won't help extradite Trump, that takes us to a whole new level of issues, because if DeSantis won't extradite him, Trump could probably travel to Texas or Iowa or solidly red states. But if he sets foot in one swing state where a Democrat is in charge, he could get arrested, and there he would be handcuffs if Trump Force One touches down in Pennsylvania or Michigan. So if he doesn't surrender, which his attorney says that he will, but if he doesn't, then everything really will be turned on its head.
Yeah, I'm curious. My goodness, I never thought about any of those possibilities. I'm going to digest those in the next 24 to 48 hours. One of the things I'm really curious of what y'all think is his call to the streets. Now, he's saying, I heard the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, say he doesn't really mean what he's saying. What he really means is that everybody should be paying attention to our democracy, and this should pull us in, and we should get involved in voicing up our democracy. And McCarthy says that does not mean violence. That does not mean going into the streets. That doesn't mean anything. What is your projection of what we're going to see? Do you think
he has a following, right?
And
Donald
these people
Trump
are angry
has
and they have weapons.
Right. Donald Trump has a following. There are people that still feel like he should be the current president. And when he's calling them out and asking them to do something, they will obey. They will follow in lockstep with this. And I think that what we're about to see is going to be another moment where we're going to see the band of crazies come out into the streets and demonstrate and do what they want to do. And it's terrifying, right? Because some of these people are armed, right? We saw that during the insurrection.
I asked this question specifically in terms of projection because really January 6th did catch me by surprise. Because when I'm seeing the breaking news and what is happening at the Capitol, it shocked me. Even with all of the stuff that I watched, it shocked me that Americans would take it to this point. So this time, I don't want to be shocked and prepared. Do we expect to see rioting in the streets over what happened?
I just don't know. I just don't think so. At least for this particular one, there's no real place or event to focus yourself on. January 6th was a constitutionally or law mandated, constitutionally appointed procedure. This is going to be in downtown Manhattan, where they do know how to handle big protests and things like this, and they will learn from the effects of January 6th. I just don't know how they'll focus it. I think if if federal charges come down, I think D.C. would be more the place where this will actually come down and really focus itself and put the Capitol into a tinderbox.
Do you agree with that we likely are not going to see?
I don't agree with that. I have like expectations of mediocrity whenever anything is centered around Donald Trump. I have expectations of seeing the worst of America whenever we talk about Donald Trump, and he's calling on them just to come out, and they will do that. I mean, even if you drive by Mar-a-Lago, right, some of his supporters are standing out there with all sorts of crazy signs, still talking about conspiracy theories about whether or not he won the election. They've lost their mind. They will do whatever he says, and if he says go out into the streets and riot, they will.
Are you nervous?
I'm not nervous.
From your seat?
I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I mean, I really believe that that we will have justice, and that we will have protection, and that we will have order from our civil servants and everybody else who's part of law enforcement to protect us from the crazies, right? Like, I really don't think that it will get in a place where our safety is out of hand. But I expect the lowest from them. Yeah.
Well, next, let's clear up health. Care Resource advises importance of COVID-19 vaccine for the LGBTQ plus community.
The latest COVID Omicron subvariant continues to rapidly spread across the U.S. and is the most genetically transmissible form of the virus to date. As cases rise nationally, Care Resource wants to remind everyone, if you have not received a vaccine or booster in the last 5 months, get vaccinated. Self-schedule your next no-cost vaccination at careresource.org. Care Resource, your community source for health care.
The latest COVID Omicron subvariant continues to rapidly spread across the U.S. and is the most genetically transmissible form of the virus to date. As the coronavirus cases are still rising nationally, Care Resource, which recently celebrated 40 years of its services in existence, wants to remind the American public, especially the LGBTQ plus community of Florida, about the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine and booster. The organization has been dedicated to its mission to improve health and the overall quality of life of our diverse South Florida communities in need for all those years. And all those years, Care Resource has responded to the needs of the community by providing life-changing patient care, while expanding its range of medical specialties and investing in technology and infrastructure to remain on the cutting edge of community health care. As part of its awareness campaign, Care Resource recently shared a YouTube video to remind people that it is time to get vaccinated if anybody has not received a vaccine or booster in the last 5 months. If you are not yet vaccinated or have missed a vaccine booster, you can self-schedule your next no-cost vaccination at careresource.org. The LGBTQ plus community across South Florida and the USA is still at risk of getting infected by the coronavirus. Well, I just will always applaud Care Resource, because we are so fortunate in South Florida, and especially Miami-Dade for many years, but South Florida to have Care Resource, because they really are on the cutting edge, and they really just have our best interests at heart all the time, and they're keeping us aware, and I think I applaud them always.
Yeah, I have to admit that I've been really relaxed, right, about either social distancing or masking or just general sort of carefulness. And I think that this kind of a reminder is really helpful so that we keep it in, top of mind and in our radar, that we have to really be careful. And I attend so many large events with large amounts of people, and it's South Florida, right? It's South Florida. We kiss and hug when we greet one another. And so it's just so good to continue to have this emphasis done. I was at a restaurant yesterday and everybody was asking for hand sanitizer. Now there was none to be seen anywhere. And it was sort of this moment of saying, like, gosh, we've really relaxed way too far. And so I'm glad that they did this.
I can't help but wonder why Care Resources discussing vaccine and booster, and so many of providers in South Florida are not. And that's one of the things. You make one interesting point in terms of being a good reminder, but it is also a reminder to me of where is the rest of the community, because I'm constantly aware, how many months have I gone before I had a booster? And then I realize, wait, I go through an extended period of time where I haven't thought about COVID at all. And am I taking risk of COVID? And am I banking on the fact that the results or the symptoms will be mild? It won't be potentially life-threatening like we saw before. So it's a good reminder that that the vaccine and the booster are important. I worry about the people that didn't get vaccinated from in the first place.
The initial beginning,
through the initial rotation, and they've been through all of this time. And just by luck of odds, they didn't get infected, but they're sitting there in the potential.
I think Care Resource, because they are so much more all-inclusive with healthcare. Of course, it started out as HIV/AIDS, but they do so much more now, and I think that's why they want to stay on top of this.
Yeah, it's great.
Next, let's queer up drag culture. RuPaul's Drag Race comes out swinging on drag queen hysteria. The contestants of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 15 are confronting anti-drag hate in the show's latest episode. Last week, the queens performed in a Wig-Loose Rusical, a reimagined version of Footloose, where a local teacher is attempting to ban drag, as the queens opened up about their fears of new laws. As the queens prepared their makeup for the Wig-Loose Rusical, they discussed their fears about doing drag given the onset of anti-drag hysteria around the country. The premise of Wig-Loose hit close to home as for the queens, as legislation has been passed in Tennessee to prevent drag performers from having shows outdoors and in front of children. Other states, including Texas, Wisconsin, Kansas, and Nebraska, have introduced similar legislation. At one point, Sasha Colby, a trans drag legend based in Los Angeles, asked Mistress Isabel Brooks if she feels on guard when doing drag in her home state of Texas, where legislators are, similar to Tennessee, attempting to categorize drag performances as sexually oriented business and remove them from the public eye. Brooks says, most definitely. Late last month, conservative Twitter targeted a performance by Brooks. During the episode's confessional, Colby expressed her worry about the future of drag and gender expression and how proposed laws are preventing queer people from being themselves openly. I think that we would be remiss if we missed sort of commenting on two other points regarding these types of bills that are being passed. Number one, they are a total offense to American freedom and values in the First Amendment. One, and number two, they're so anti-business, right? And so many of these governors that are leading states in conservative areas are often trying to purport that they are the pro-business people. This is anti-business. They are threatening businesses left and right, closing them down, fining them for having drag performers. And so it's the hypocrisy, again, that we see against our freedoms when they're the ones trying to tout that this is like the freest state here in Florida, and it's happening here as well.
It's interesting to me, of course, absent in this story is Florida. And Florida may perhaps be the most insidious. Governor DeSantis is turning out to be an opponent that is wily, coyote, in that Tennessee takes a sledgehammer and says, bam, and Texas is about to do the same thing, and other places in the country. His approach is much more insidious. He is focusing on the alcohol, the legal alcohol aspects of a drag performance with children. And the reason I think, in my opinion, he is doing that with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation is to test the waters, to see how far he can go before he picks up the mallet like they did in Tennessee, and see what happens in Tennessee. Our LGBT community is much larger than Tennessee. Our drag performance community is a giant compared to Tennessee. So I think he's taking a very insidious route, but a much more dangerous one. And for him to, we got into the argument last week of whether he is trying to revoke the liquor license of the Hyatt Regency Miami. That's exactly what he is doing. It's become clear now that that's exactly what he is trying to do. Broward Center is at play. The R House is at play. Orlando Philharmonic is at play. Jinx Monsoon is coming on the tour. Seminole Hard Rock is at play now with the national tour. And not only anti-business, he's coming in from a standpoint of being very sophisticated in his attack of creating fear and threat.
But to speak to the show, the episode of RuPaul itself, that episode was, I thought, fabulous. And I thought it was one of the best musicals ever. And I posted on my social media right during the episode that I was so grateful that Ru stepped up and really spoke out about what's happening to the drag community and the LGBTQ+ community. I even videotaped that section that was referenced in your story and sent it to my sister-in-law in North Carolina to say, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. And so I just thought it was a fantastic episôt.
Yeah, because for so long, and I think you know some of the people associated with
I might know a single or
but for so long, just RuPaul's Drag Race existence was enough. The fact that, they were out there on national television, on a decently rated cable channel, that was enough. They didn't need to be politically active, but I think it's wonderful that they found a platform where they can talk legitimately in the space and make the social commentary while still staying in the theme of the show without alienating the people, the allies that you see. So I think that they found a perfect issue to go on. And remember, they're the one to attack in Florida. It was Drag Race alum that were at the Arch Center, which is tangentially the Hyatt Regency, and Broward Center here and the Orlando Philharmonic. So they are under attack, not professionally, not just as a profession, but to a certain extent individually as well. So this is important.
One final thought before we move on. It's important to remember that RuPaul could come to Florida, to Fort Lauderdale. RuPaul could be in the Manor and sit in the Crystal Ballroom. And there could be children present, and RuPaul do a drag queen story hour and start in book 1, chapter 1, in the beginning, God, and then read from that book. And the Manor would be in jeopardy with the state of Florida. And when you talk about the violation of the First Amendment, there's no sexuality going on. Drag is not a sexual experience. It is. And RuPaul, over the course of 30 years, especially coming to prominence in 1994 in the VH1 show, like gay, hate gay, whatever it's been, RuPaul has not been the focus of hate for nearly 30 years until this culture war match is lit. And that's what they're doing.
Well, we move on and we queer up education. Anti-LGBTQ+ bills could have enormous impact on historically black colleges and universities and black LGBTQ+ community. The recent spate of legislation targeting LGBTQ identities is threatening to negate some of the progress at historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, the progress they have made in providing safe spaces for members of the community. Over the past decade in particular, HBCUs have made a concerted effort to address the community's concerns, from establishing LGBTQ+ centers on campus to changing admissions policies to allow transgender students to enroll. But now some fear new legislation could have a chilling effect on that progress. According to HRC, more than 340 anti-LGBTQ plus laws have been introduced in state legislatures this year, with 150 specifically restricting the rights of transgender people. These laws range from limiting health care for transgender people to bathroom bans to prohibiting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs on campuses. Many of these laws have been passed in states home to HBCUs, which are mostly in the South. Today, 19 HBCUs have land grant status under an 1890 Morrill Act. These HBCUs, as well as public HBCUs, receive some state funding, though it's not equal in amounts as predominantly white state schools get. Still, with the spread of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, non-compliance with these laws means these colleges and universities could lose their state funding. I said white colleges. I should have said while other state colleges are doing it. So I certainly didn't mean that. This is already happening in Florida. Ron DeSantis has banned or is attempting to ban the diversity and inclusion programs, a women's history study program, or no, African American studies program. My bad. And that's happening. And we've talked with teachers at various colleges, ranging from community college up to some universities, that have explicitly or implicitly been threatened with their jobs if they teach certain subjects in a certain light. And obviously the governor is appointing like-minded people to presidencies of universities with no real accountability to anybody for his appointment. So this is a real thing. It's getting bad, and it's getting very bad very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the trickiness around states' rights, right? When states are traditionally and historically bigoted, come from a really strong biased background, whenever they are advocating for their own right to be able to pass laws and rule, they become incredibly toxic, right? And they're doing things that are just terrible. And typically we've seen a lot of these states, mostly coming from the South, that are invoking these types of prejudicial rulings. This is why the Equality Act, and I'm going to say this several times, I think, today in today's program, this is why the Equality Act at the federal level inoculates the entire country from the hate and bigotry that can come from states. And so we see this around abortion, we see this around LGBT rights, we see this around race and equality, right? We see this in these conversations. Why? Because some states are inherently in their history just bigoted and unable to create a place that's welcoming, that's diverse, and that's inclusive. And so the Equality Act needs to get passed. It needs to get passed in order to be able to protect us all in these states.
You know, I'm curious, Orlando, you say that, and your words are so clear to me, and you're talking about Alabama and George McGovern, and we're talking about Mississippi and other places. But did you ever think in the advocacy at SAVE and your lifetime of advocacy in LGBT that one of the states that you would be talking about would be Florida?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we live sort of in this false sense of security in South Florida because it is a little bit purple down here, right?
Less
but
so
the rest
in the
of
last
less so recently, but the rest of the state is incredibly red, right? The rest of the state identifies with the South of the United States. It has a strong root in that history. And so I'm no fool of thinking that Florida is in any way shielded from any of that history as well.
Yeah, because if you drive north in Florida, you see a very different kind of environment, for sure. Next, let's clear up trans rights. Supreme Court deciding if anti-trans law should go into effect. What could be the single most important transgender rights case in America history has reached Chief Justice Roberts' desk. He's being asked to allow a West Virginia law banning trans student athletes from competing with the gender they identify with to go into effect. Becky, a middle school student in West Virginia, is asking to be allowed to play in girls' sports, but is prevented by the new state law. A jury never got to decide the case, as the judge alone ruled against her in summary judgment at the circuit or trial court level. She's asking the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals to hear the case, and they granted a stay during the process. West Virginia and its allies are asking the Chief Justice to lift the stay and let the law go into effect. He could make the decision or refer it to the entire court for a vote. No matter what is decided now, the Fourth Circuit will likely hear the case and eventually could end up on the High Court's docket, which would then set the stage for a seismic ruling on how trans people are treated under the law. This story really confuses me a lot because I was a bit perplexed as to how the process works with the court and with each individual judge, and then as they pertain to the circuit court. So could someone explain that to me a little bit?
Well, this story is, it is very inside baseball, and it is very procedural. Basically, a judge, for whatever reason, in the Fourth Circuit, which West Virginia falls under, said, okay, I've listened to all the arguments and I've read the evidence, so I'm going to decide the case. No jury, nothing. I'm just going to decide it, and he decided it for West Virginia. Now, the people who lost, Becky and her family, and the ACLU are going to appeal this to the Fourth Circuit, which oversees West Virginia. And while they're doing that, the Fourth Circuit justices said, okay, we're not going to let this law take effect until we've heard it, till we've made a ruling. Now, West Virginia's people are saying, wait, we're going to move out of the way. Justice Roberts, who oversees that court, will you please say, okay, the appeal can go forward, but let this law take effect while we're doing it. So basically, it's a procedural thing, and they want the law to go into effect, which would basically harm trans kids now, as opposed to harming them later, should they win the case. But the real meat on this story, the real thing about it is that this says the High Court is going to take a look at it, whether Justice Roberts takes a look at it individually, or all of them say yes or no on the stay itself. They will probably hear this full case within a couple of years. And in a couple of years, it could be very different. We may have a different president. We may have a different administration. So it's imperative that we pay attention to this court case now and make sure that we at least have a federal government that will stand behind this kid, even if the state is not.
Right.
Does that make it any clearer?
Yeah, but I can see why I was confused.
And I tend to think that the Justice Robert and anybody on the Supreme Court faced with this decision is always going to be very conservative leaning and is going to say, let the process work itself out through all the stays that it needs to go to before it gets to us, right? So any sort of, advancement of the process, I think, is not something that they would favor. They're going to let it go through the Fourth Circuit. And after that, once it's challenged, then it would rise up, right? And so I think that it's going to be a very conservative ruling that we're going to be able to see. And it's going to be, let's see how it plays itself out.
All right, Orlando, we're going to move on to Harvey Milk.
Let's do it. Next, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Harvey Milk Foundation celebrates Diversity Honors at the Seminole Hard Rock. Diversity Honors, the globally renowned celebration benefiting Harvey Milk Foundation and the Pride Center at Equality Park, will exclusively be hosted at Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Hollywood, on Saturday, April 1st at 7 p.m. to acknowledge those who are transforming lives with their authenticity and advancing inclusiveness. This year, the foundation will honor Commissioner Nicole Ramirez with the prestigious Harvey Milk Medal, Carol Moran with the Pride Center at Equality Park Alan Schubert Award, and Stoli Group's Global CEO, Damian McKinney, with the 2023 Global Business Leadership Award. Additional honorees for this year's event include Florida State Senator Chev Jones, drag TV star and entrepreneur Latrice Royale, South Florida Symphony Orchestra's president and CEO Jacqueline Lorber, and music director Sabrina Maria Alfonso, and the Bears of South Florida. You can register for the award function at diversityhonors.org for $250 and enjoy an open bar, live entertainment, and awards. Queer News Tonight will be broadcasting the whole event on site, so join us. This is really awesome. I love these types of events. They celebrate so many of the unsung heroes, and so I'm excited about it and looking forward to the event.
Different than the previous 6 Diversity Honors Awards. This one will be out by the pool and under the stars. So they're saying it will have a different vibe no matter what. And I was talking with Miriam Richter, who's the one of the executive board members of Harvey Milk Foundation. She was very excited about this. She said that it's going to be like nothing we've ever seen before at this level for an event, and is very excited about it. As for entertainers, I was speaking with a couple people behind the scenes. They're keeping it very hush-hush under guard. They just said exciting people or exciting entertainment will pop up. So we'll see.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting to me. I think about Harvey Milk and diversity honors differently than I have in the past. I've been multiples of times. I think the cause and the anytime when we have an opportunity to propel equality and recognize people in the community that do that, we stop and take the moment to do that. That's what the Champions of Equality Gala will do for SAVE in May. This is a unique one, though, for me, because I think about Harvey Milk Foundation in a different way today than I did even 3 years ago. Harvey Milk was a voice that was railing against the machine when he was in his city post in San Francisco. He was a minority voice in arguably one of the gay capitals of the world, at a time where there was no voice, there was no representation, and he was out there on his own, which is why he echoed so many of his famous quotes of saying, unless you're visible, you're not helping us. And you have an obligation to share and stand up and come out of the closet and be a warrior for the LGBTQ community. So when I go to Diversity Honors April 1st, I'll be thinking of Harvey Milk in terms of his voice in the 1970s and what was so important in his time period, because that exact same sentiment and voice is super important in 2023.
Awesome. Next, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Former American Idol contestant and singer-songwriter, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and some radical conservatives have suggested that the LGBTQ plus community has a secret plan. We can only guess it's probably for world domination. And we couldn't agree more, and we are going to tell you all about it in our segment called The Gay Agenda. In The Gay Agenda, we queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. Trevor Project labeled a groomer organization, and panicked employees want to unionize. The Trevor Project is in crisis, according to many of the organization's staffers, so they've decided to unionize. In November, CEO Amit Paley was removed by the Trevor Project's board of directors in response to a letter signed by over 200 employees expressing dissatisfaction with the organization's rapid scale-up. Paley was replaced by co-founder Peggy Rochsky as interim CEO. Trevor has also come under assault from 4chan users clogging the organization's hotline with fake calls, verbal abuse, and death threats. The Trevor Project receives more than 200,000 calls a year, over 500 a day, runs a social media network called Trevor Space, and conducts a widely resourced annual survey on youth mental health, the largest of its kind. Now, the sum of these services, the turmoil in management, and the outside attacks are taking a toll on the people at the Trevor Project's front lines, some 300 paid staff, along with over 700 volunteers.
In The Gay Agenda, we queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida AIDS Walk raises millions for South Florida LGBTQ plus beneficiaries. While HIV and AIDS have fallen out of the spotlight in recent years, the epidemic is far from over. An estimated 1.1 million people in the U.S. are living with HIV, and 15% of them don't know it. Florida AIDS Walk works to bring attention to the pressing issue, educate and inspire our community to work together, and end the epidemic once and for all. The walk is a great way to give back to your community. This year, the walk was organized this past Saturday, and the 5K walk started and ended at Fort Lauderdale Beach Park. The program started about 8 a.m. with DJ Ed Talks on stage, and the walk stepped off at 10 a.m. The walk has raised more than $2 million so far. These funds will be used to support HIV/AIDS services throughout Florida. The benefiting organizations include Broward House, Equality Florida Institute, Latino Salute, Aqua, Pride Lines, Safe School South Florida, SunServe, World AIDS Museum and Educational Center, Trans Inclusive Group, and Save LGBTQ, along with Afro Pride Florida.
In the gay agenda, we queer up the USA View. September's Unleashed in Dallas may be LGBTQ+ event of the year. Unleashed LGBTQ, the first of its kind LGBTQ+ business conference and entertainment festival, has announced new talent for this year's already powerful lineup. Anthony Porowski from Queer Eye, actor and model India Moore, former state representative Brian Sims, and entrepreneur and wealth management expert Kelly Ann Wingett will all be on hand for the event, taking place September 22nd to 24th at Gilley's in Dallas, Texas. Unleashed LGBTQ is the safe space for brands, entertainers, and LGBTQ+ professionals to connect among family and allies. The three-day event features an array of professional development workshops and networking opportunities across the business, entertainment, fashion, travel, and technology sectors. It is also partnering with the iconic Alamo Drafthouse to host screenings of new LGBTQ+ content. Tickets are available on the official website of Unleashed LGBTQ.
In the gay agenda, we queer up South Florida and Florida. Tampa Bay LGBTQ+ group organizes self-defense class in response to growing threats. Tampa-based LGBTQ support group Found Family Collective hosted a self-defense class aimed at the LGBTQ community recently. The event was held in collaboration with the self-defense training company Weapon Brand at Allendale United Methodist Church in St. Petersburg. In a news release, Found Family Collective said that they were hosting the event, quote, in response to antagonistic legislation and increase in hate crimes, as well as protest and attack against pride parades and drag events, end quote. As part of Weapon Brand's basic self-defense course, attendees learn pre-contact cues, managing distance, defensive framing, how to defend against a punch, choke, or grab, and utilizing defensive striking according to the event description. Representatives from CAN, Community Health, an organization that provides care and education regarding HIV and other STIs, also attended the event to provide sexual health information to attendees.
In the gay agenda, we queer up the USA View. Montana Senate passes unbelievable law that excludes LGBTQ+ people from protection under state law.
Senate Bill 458 passed 28 to 22 Wednesday in a preliminary vote on the Senate floor. Supporters said it made a relatively simple change, while opponents said the effects could be broader than expected.
SB 458, sponsored by Republican Senator Carl Glimm of Kyla, would define a person's sex throughout Montana law as being based on their reproductive system, male or female. Glimm said the bill was about creating a definition for sex separate from gender, and he pointed to a court decision that blocked a law the legislature passed last session that would have prevented transgender people from changing the sex on their birth certificate without a court order showing they had undergone surgical transition.
We can have policy discussions about where we want to use these terms later, but we need to define what those terms mean, because right now we're getting into lawsuits because these terms get conflated and we don't have clear definitions.
Opponents said the bill's definitions were too simplistic to account for all people, and they questioned the fiscal impact, saying it could lead to litigation and potential financial consequences from the federal government for going against their policy on discrimination based on sex.
On a bill of this size and of this importance, to what degree is it responsible for our body to sign off on that bill? that may or may not create substantial future costs to our general fund.
The Senate added an amendment Wednesday that seeks to address concerns about how the bill would affect intersex people, but opponents questioned if that was enough.
The bill will now have to pass a final vote in the Senate before moving over to the House. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Well, that second reading did pass on Friday and adopts a discriminatory and unworkable definition of sex aimed at excluding LGBTQ plus people from the protections of state law. There would be a particularly harmful impact on intersex, non-binary, and transgender people. If it becomes law, LGBTQ plus people would be prohibited from bringing claims of sexual orientation or gender identity discrimination in areas like employment, housing, public accommodations, healthcare, credit, and education. It would also require applications and records for such things as marriage licenses, death certificates, and cemetery internment, as well as child support registration, to list sex based on biology rather than gender identity. The bill doubles down on the state ban on transgender students participating in sports consistent with their gender identity and the ban on marriage for same-sex couples. The Human Rights Campaign has condemned the vote. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Orlando Gonzales, Dale Stine, and John Hayden, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. Before we end our broadcast, we have one final story. Next, let's queer up the big interview. Thousands will attend Palm Beach International Gay Polo Tournament in April. The National Polo Center in Wellington, Florida will host the Lexus International Gay Polo Tournament from April 6 to 9, 2023. April 8 will be the main event tournament and tailgate competition. 16 polo players from around the world will compete on the Isla Carol West field for prize money during both the Senators Cup and Founders Cup. While this elite event is around the corner, I recently talked to Chip McKinney, founder of the Gay Polo League. The Gay Polo League is the only LGBTQ plus polo organization in the world. Watch Chip talk about his journey, Lexus International Gay Polo Tournament, and a whole lot. Polo, you know, with horses, mallets, champagne. Gosh, doesn't that sound fun? But while we are broadcasting in the gayest place on planet Earth and in the shadow of fabled Palm Beach, we don't see much opportunity to say the word gay and the words polo in the same sentence. But that's all going to change here tonight. We are happy to welcome Chip McKinney, the founder and president of the Gay Polo League. And we're going to tell you all about a big event coming up. Chip, welcome to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you very much, Al. I appreciate being here.
You know, before we start, I have to, in full disclosure, say my only exposure to polo, well, I guess I too am just a pretty woman.
This must be really proud, huh?
Everything was going their way.
Well done! Well done! Walk, walk, walk!
Well, that's probably going to be me, as 2,000 people from all over the world are getting ready to converge on the National Polo Center in Palm Beach, April 7th through the 9th, for the 2023 Lexus International Gay Polo Tournament, presented by Douglas Eileman. Chip, welcome again to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you.
Did I get that right? And normally you don't see the words gay and polo together.
It's catchy, isn't it?
It is
It's
catchy.
very catchy. Yeah. And it's Googleable.
And well, of course, that's the important thing.
I know.
Tell us a little bit, before we get into what's happening in April in Palm Beach, tell us a little bit about what the inspiration of this was. You're the founder. Right. The Gay Polo League is the only LGBTQ polo league in the entire world. You're a 501c3.
Correct.
All of those ring wonderfully to me. Tell me a little bit about the history.
So I founded the Gay Polo League in 2006. I was living in Los Angeles. I had a long history with show jumping and horses. It's been in my DNA and my blood all my life. But in 2006, I had stopped show jumping competitively, and I was kind of looking for my next tribe. Like, my social network was dwindled because I wasn't going to horse shows. And I decided I would take a polo lesson in Santa Barbara. And halfway through that polo lesson, I literally got the idea that it was a great sport for LGBT people all over the world for many, many reasons. And I pulled up halfway through and I said to the riding instructor that I didn't know that I was going to start a gay polo league. And that's really the birth of it.
And did he look at you or say, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah. Were you there? Because that's exactly what he said. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I just think this is a great sport for gay people. It's ancient, it's elegant, it's athletic, there's a beauty to it, and it's a team event." So I thought that would be something that we could do all over the world.
You know, Chip, I have to say to you, pretty well traveled, but I've never been exposed to polo, which makes me think, hey, what rock am I living under? And I've been here in South Florida now coming up on 5 years, and it's not something that you see a lot of. And the one generalization stereotype that we have of Palm Beach is it's a different class set, and polo helps fulfill that. The National Polo Center, so gay and polo. Is there any truth to that stereotype or no?
Well, I think the truth is what you said prior to getting the stereotype. The truth is, polo is not an urban sport primarily, so it's not easily as accessible to people as softball, football, baseball, the other ones that anybody can have access to. Because polo itself requires a large space. For example, a polo field is 9 times the size of a football field. So you're really looking at vast expansions of green space. So it's generally played in parts of the country that can offer that. The sport of polo, I believe, it labors a little bit with an idea that it's prestigious, or it's
kings and queens play it.
Well, yeah, but now we know queens play it. So we're changing that. We're changing that stereotype.
One queen at a time.
One queen at a time. Right. One chucker at a time, actually, is our tagline. But the thing is, our event sort of embraces the specialness of polo, and we create an opportunity for everybody to come and enjoy it. And if you haven't seen a polo game, it's wildly watchable, and it's easily understandable. There is thrill, and there's also pomp, there's circumstance, but we bring it to everybody.
Yeah, I want to get into that. Okay, so you've tickled my fancy, and I'm paying attention, and I'll get into some of the more details in a minute. One of the things that was fascinating to me is the association of the event, an international gay polo tournament in sponsorship. Lexus comes in, Douglas Elliman comes in. It's just curious to me because this is such a specialty niche. 2,000 people are going to come to the event that we're talking about in a moment. Why would a business community, especially maybe a non-gay business community like Alexis, why would sponsors gravitate towards something like that?
I think 2 reasons sponsors gravitate to the GPL. I think the first thing is our brand is unique in the world of organized sports and in the world of LGBT. So because we are unique and we're the only gay identified league in the world, we have a special place for those type of sponsors looking to get their brand and their products in front of a unique demographic. I think the second reason is our unique demographic tends to be older. We tend to attract 28 to 70 plus year old people who tend to be more luxury oriented. So we've been very careful in how we present our brand so that we don't sexualize it. You know, a lot of people immediately when they hear a gay polo league, they want to make it sexual and they want to make it those things. We don't do that. For us, the beauty and the sexuality of it are the horses and the elegance and all of that stuff.
All right, well, Chip, I'm going to have to take out a whole series of jokes that I was going to make in this interview.
You're welcome to. I may not have heard them before.
Right, you probably have. All right, before we jump into Palm Beach, the other thing that was fascinating about gaypolo.com and the league is you have 3 international tournaments, one in Europe and one in Buenos Aires. Saint-Tropez, which I love very much in the south of France. You're going to London this year. Tell us a little bit about that, the international versions of this.
Okay, so, and thank you for asking about that, because the big vision, the big mission behind this is to elevate awareness of LGBT athletes. That's really my calling, and I use the GPL as the vehicle to do that. So we have our international gay polo tournament in Wellington, Palm Beach County, every year. That's our flagship event. And we've started to push into other countries. So as you mentioned, we did Saint-Tropez. We've had 2 events the last 2 years there. We've done Argentina every year for 7 years. And this year we're going back to London for our 2nd time to host an event there. And our goal really is to bring what we see as a great opportunity to showcase LGBT athletes in areas and countries and urban cities that we already have communities. So that's why we do the 3.
Well, fun. I want to go back to Buenos Aires. This would be a great justification.
December.
And a great time of the year, because that's
I know it's perfect.
Yeah, perfect. All right, well, let's dive right into Palm Beach. The International Gay Polo Tournament is going to take place. There's preliminary activities that are more private on Wednesday and Thursday, but then the first event for the public is Friday, April 7th, and it's called the Polotini.
Correct.
All right, Polotini charity party to benefit the One Pulse Foundation, of which, of course, as many people know, I'm a big supporter of, and for reasons why. Your publicity says experience a hair-raising extravaganza, which is very funny considering one of the stars participating. Revelry includes music, dancing, open bar, delectable hors d'oeuvres, and a special live performance by the incomparable Lady Bunny. And of course, as you advertise, you've got to wear your finest wig. And this year's charity for the event is One Pulse, as I said. Tell me a little bit about the Friday night event. First off, Bunny coming and polo, I assure you, this is the first association with something classy ever in Bunny's entire life.
Isn't it outrageous?
It's outrageous.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't think we'd ever get Bunny. And I had a connection who's helping us plan the event, and he had her phone number in his phone. And he said, let's call Bunny. And I was like, let's. And actually, she answered, and we pitched it. And he said, I love the idea. Talk to my manager. And that's kind of how it all came to be. It was just such a surprise. So I'm thrilled.
Yeah,
I'm thrilled.
And tell me about that thinking of having, as we started polo in Palm Beach, having this image. If there is the antithesis of a drag queen image, it's Bunny.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a fair assessment, and we hope she lives up to that. Here's kind of the genesis of this. So originally, we became a 501c3, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago, and we've built an event that we feel can be used as a platform to raise funds for other LGBT-facing charities. So we've worked with Compass, we worked with Sage for 2 years, and this will be our 2nd year as a charity partner to One Pulse Foundation. Our event is about a celebration of the best of gay culture. It really is, taking what made us so unique in the world and so special in my mind and certainly in my own life, and bring it all together under one roof. And that is the birth of Wigstock. Because we used to do sort of like a boring cocktail party, and you know, that wasn't all that
we're
fun.
gay
People,
after all.
yeah, I mean, right? And, you know, we had to have a cocktail party in the blue blazer set. But then my husband said, you know what you need? You need like a theme. You need something to make it more fun. So when we started brainstorming about all of this, costume parties require a lot of work and expense and effort for people to go and get a costume. What doesn't require very much effort at all is a wig. Mm-hmm. So you can wear anything you want, and you just need to wear a wig. And what we noticed about people is the minute they put on a wig, they become different people.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious.
Exactly what
and
drag
it's fun.
does.
Yeah, and it's incredible. Yeah. And the first year, I think maybe 30% of people wore a wig, and the rest just stood around. And now everybody wears a wig.
You know, it seems to me Compass has a senior program at the Compass LGBT Center. SAGE is the leading organization in America voicing support of the needs of LGBT older Americans. To bring Lady Bunny in it is perfect theming because she represents both of those streams, and so it's a perfect continuation of that theme that you've done. And be sure and tell her.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure I know her age, but maybe she qualifies as an elder.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Chip.
Probably safe.
So One Pulse Foundation, of course, near and dear to many, an LGBT member of our community. Tell us why the selection of One Pulse.
I was introduced to One Pulse by a guy who's come to our event several times. And I didn't know anything about One Pulse. Of course, I was painfully aware of the massacre and on all of the happenings. But when he asked me if I would consider partnering with them, I said, well, let me look into that organization. When I looked into the organization, I was so touched by the story and by the outpouring of community and global really support and empathy with it. And I thought this is important that we get behind, because sadly, this is a massacre that happened in our state, in our country, in modern times. And that to me was an indication that that's not going to be the only situation. We just saw a recent one in Colorado. Same thing happened. Not as many tragedies, thankfully. But we're still, in my mind, we're still somewhat at risk in our own country. And I wanted to do something that paired with somebody else's vision of building something to educate and to remind and to persuade people that gays have value and we matter and we should be protected along with every other person in this country. That's really why I chose.
It's a great cause, a great reason why to participate in the Friday night party event. Right. Saturday, April 8th is the big day, the Gay Polo League's International Tournament Finals. 16 LGBTQ plus polo players and others that are allies to community from around the world will compete. 4 polo teams will compete for 2 GPL perpetual trophies that are called the Senator's Cup and the Founders Cup, and it's all being held at the National Polo Center, which is one of the top-ranked polo clubs in the entire world. Now, this event goes on. I've watched Pretty Woman, so I'm pretty much an expert on polo now. I rewatched it in preparing to interview with you because I don't want to, do the whoops, I want to fit in.
Right, of course.
What's interesting to me about polo, you've got to help us understand how seating, tailgates, general admission all work, because it's not like going to a football game or a basketball game. This is an outdoor field event. So explain to us how this works.
So to contextualize what our event looks and feels like, I refer to it as like the love child between Burning Man and Pretty Woman. So that sort of gives you the idea. It's highly creative. People put a lot of time and effort to come, and they build these amazing tailgate presents all around the field. It's highly interactive. So attendees walk from tailgate to tailgate to tailgate. And I think, quite frankly...
Oh, now it's a gay event.
Oh, well, and others. And others, yeah. Right. No, it's very inclusive. And that brings up actually a good point I'd like to mention. We are a gay-identified event, but we're inclusive, not exclusive. Our event is suitable for families, for your parents, for your grandparents, for kids. We welcome all the allies. And, you know, we do have allies that have supported us, mostly in our sponsorship roster, and also on the field. And with some of our players this year, we have 2 allies. One's flying in from Germany to compete, and another person is flying in from Aiken to compete. So, you know, we want allies to be with us because that is who we are, and that's what we feel is really important.
So you can be in a tent with full food and bar. Right. You can have space where you have a tent for tailgating and general mission. Like if you did the tailgating in the traditional tailgating at a football game, you bring your own food and.
Correct.
How does that work?
Correct. So we offer, as you mentioned, we offer a VIP tent, which is sponsored by Cherry Knoll Farm, and they're an amazing ally, longtime supporter of GPL. That tent, you can buy a table, you can buy an individual ticket. We offer a full buffet, open bar, it's field side, and it's all day long. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of like the easy way to go. Mm-hmm. The more fun way to go, perhaps, are the tailgates. Mm-hmm. So you buy a tailgate, and you get with that tailgate, which is one spot with a 10 by 10 tent, and you get 10 tickets with that. So you and 9 friends can pull together, bring your own food, bring your own beverages, decorate, we hope. We highly encourage that because we have a great tailgate competition with awards. And that's just really fun. I mean, that's a tremendous way to do it. And then we also have general admission tickets for people who want to come and either join their friends at a tailgate or walk around and enjoy the day.
Yeah, it's so different than what I normally hear from a Pride or a white party, or, you know, it sounds like it's so much fun. That's the big day. As I said, you know, I remind 2,000 expected to the event. And then on Sunday, you close April 9th with brunch at Malik Grill. Mm-hmm. And you have food and buffet, open bar, and you watch the U.S. Open Polo tournament, I understand.
So this is really for people who've traveled. Like you mentioned, we have players flying in from 7 countries this year to compete. Mm. And all of us will go then to the Malik Grill on Sunday, and it's on the member side of the National Polo Center, which is it's a tremendous venue, and it's beautiful. And then we watch the U.S. Open Polo, which is the highest gold polo matches outside of Argentina in the world. Mm. So those aren't gay matches, but they're certainly worthwhile watching.
Yeah, fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'm curious as we end talking about the International Gay Polo Tournament that's taking place. You know, for all of those that try to confine and define LGBT, we're all drag queens, we're all negative stereotypes that we're watching in some of the state houses around the country. It seems to me that this international polo tournament for the gay community is a great representation that we are everything, including polo.
Yeah, that's a nice thing for you to say. For me, I felt growing up as a baby gay who was really driven to participate in sports. Something told me that team sports weren't available to me. And I think it was the absence of seeing professional gay athletes on TV or in mainstream media. We kind of knew the sports that welcomed them. We kind of had an inkling, but you never saw anybody talk about, oh, here's Martina Tolova and here's her wife and their children in the stands. That absence was what I thought, you know, we need to change that. We need to start modeling the behavior that we seek in other people. And honestly, today, you still see very few gay out and proud athletes who compete as out and proud athletes. And when they do, it seems to stall out their career. So it's very, very important. And I think it takes a lot of courage for our players, including the allies that play with us, to openly present themselves as gay athletes in a gay tournament.
Absolutely fascinating. April 7th through the 9th are just across our border into Palm Beach County.
which is only 45 minutes north. It's just a hop, skip, and a small jump.
Wait, it's that close?
Yes, it is. You people in Fort Lauderdale, you don't seem to know Wellington at all.
Geography, come on, what is it? Chip, last question. What's the number one thing that you are proud of in terms of helping present the International Gay Polo Tournament?
It's, in all honesty, it's hard to narrow it down to one thing. But if I have to, I would say the one thing I'm the most proud about is how it has drawn people from all different walks of life and all different positions. When I first started this, I thought I'd meet people like me. And in all honesty, I've met many people and more people that are far more interesting, far more courageous, and far more talented than I am. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I think we've started to build a community, and we are inclusive, so we welcome everybody, and I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And before we go, I can't help but notice, I'm not even sure what this is.
This is a gift for you. This is a branded GPL polo ball. This is exactly what we hit. So that's a 3-inch diameter, hard plastic ball, and I thought you should have it, if you ever decide to, take up the sport.
Yeah, take up the sport. Thank you very much.
More than welcome.
Oh, it's very hard too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Well, I can't wait. I'm going to come up. It's in our backyard. If you're here in South Florida, you are never going to be able to say anywhere in the world, our LGBTQ community marks lots of big parts of their life and their travel by saying, I got to. You won't be able to do this anywhere else in the world. April 7th to 9th, the Gay Polo League's International Gay Polo Tournament in Palm Beach. Chip McKinney, founder of the league, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you all there.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth